Good evening. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another pre-market report. My name's Kyle here at Active Management Research and ready to have a discussion with you guys about this week's pre-market details. All right. Most of this week's pre-market details are mainly majority of what we've been hearing about across the news. There's some specific details, some specific things that has happened in the last week that we get to have a quick chat about as well. So on this YouTube video, we're going to bring you the top headlines for this trading week ahead and some of the backdrop of some of the fundamental data that has happened last week, right, that has led up to this week, and some of the details on specific headlines that has been circling the news as of recently. So let's go ahead and get started here with some of the template of what's going on in the markets today. All right, so taper talks, Delta variant, Afghanistan, and Hurricane Ida are the majority of the headlines of this trading week ahead. Now, we do have some fundamental event risk that's out in front of us for this week as well. A lot of economic reports, right? We have Hurricane Ida, taper talks from last week's convention with Fed Chairman Powell, right? So let's go ahead and get into it. Equities review this week, guys. Equities review. Markets have stormed higher. The S&P and the tech space has stormed higher on the taper talk conversation between Fed Powell, Chairman, the Federal Reserve Chairman Powell, excuse me, and his specific description of the economy at the Jackson Hole Virtual Symposium. Now, very, very, very interesting chat as he did bring reassurance back to investors this week that he wouldn't be tapering the free money policy that's been in place for the coronavirus. Right? I spoke about in our last interview that there were specific policies in place that helped keep the market more stable, help stabilize Americans, right? We got stimulus and things like that, right? Stabilize the banks with low interest rates, et cetera, et cetera. All these accommodating policies were put in place due to the pandemic. Okay, so the most recent taper talks was a discussion on when we will be relieving these specific policies. Now, first Powell came out and said, oh, we are going to certainly be tapering corporate buybacks this year. The market kind of went into a tantrum. I think this was last week, Wednesday or so, or Tuesday. And market kind of went into a tantrum, kind of sold for a couple of days, and then kind of bounced off this multi-week trend we see here in the S&P 500, right? And then to new to all-time highs by the end of the week on his remarks that we won't be adjusting anything related to this free money policy until 2022. This sparked a rally in S&P 500, taking us back to all-time highs, and the tech space definitely leading the way, putting on another 2% that day. Very, very accommodating Fed, right? And Federal Reserve Powell has has his way with investors and making them feel more content and in control, or at least knowing what he's planning to do ahead, right? Investors take their time in trying to understand his dovish or hawkish approach to the economic situations in the United States, and they have felt very secure, which allowed the markets to march higher. All right. Very, very, very interesting. Okay, markets continue higher on this multi-month trend here. Now we're having to back out each candlestick representing 1 week of trade instead of 1 day of trade, as we need to collect more data and consolidate it. Okay, so now we have a chance to see from last year, March lows, that this trend has been very consistent and can go a very long time with the accommodating Fed. All right, very, very interesting. Typically, taper tantrums where the market has sold off likely due to come from uncertainty around what the Federal Reserve Powell chairman will be saying or doing in the upcoming interviews. Very good. Moving on from equities, the fundamental release of data for this week will be ISM manufacturing, balance and trade sheets, jobless claims, and non-farm payrolls. Non-farm payrolls definitely the most important fundamental release of data this week, guys. Most certainly, the non-farm payroll is the labor statistic of information or the amount of jobs added to the economy in the last month. Very important. Why? Because some of these vaccine mandates have kind of placed an adjustment on the labor force here. Will we see more people filing for unemployment due to the vaccine mandates, or will this remain more consistent? We're about to find out on Friday this week. And to kind of compile that thought together, we've heard Delta came out and said that they will be adding $200 to their health insurance policy for those employees that chose not to get vaccinated. Um, that's something to talk about, right? That's definitely something to talk about, as this has never happened before, right? It's definitely something to talk about. Are these sorts of mandates due to help the economy or hurt the economy? We will be talking about that more as well. Okay, most certainly, definitely. Very interesting. So we will be watching the unemployment rate this week and the amount of jobs added to the economy in the last month, and we'll be speculating this data to understand more about how these mandates are offsetting or adjusting the labor force. Earnings this week, right? As earnings confessionals are due to calm down quite a sum now. We do have Zoom due to report after the close, as that's a COVID stock. And We have Trudy after the close on Wednesday, as well as Five Below and OKTA. Some of these data companies like OKTA definitely be looking out to see their earnings reports. DocuSign reports after the close on Thursday. That one is another very interesting one. Tilly's, right? And American Eagle, right? Some of these retailers. So very, very interesting. All right. We can obviously see that the earnings reports are calming down, right? So that's very good. All right, we'll see some more smoother, consistent trading. Smith& Wesson reporting after the close on Wednesday. That's another really important one. We've seen Smith& Wesson in the entire arms industry really trade higher in the last month. All right, so it'll be good to hear an update on what's going on with Smith & Wesson. Are people still buying weapons at the alarming rate that they have been all year? And are ammo still a scarce commodity in the United States? All right, we'll get an update on that as well this week. Very important to keep up with the arms industry. All right, very good. Very good. All right, so some of the most specific topics on this week: Hurricane Ida storms into Louisiana, causing flooding and a lot of uncertainty around a lot of our energy supplies in the United States. This is oil, and a lot of these energy producers are out there between Texas and Louisiana. So very important to see how oil and gas prices will be affected during Hurricane Ida this week. All right, very, very not may not be too big of a deal. Certainly may not be too big of a deal, but it's definitely something to keep up with. Those oil traders and those that do participate in trading natural gas will have some volatility in their positions this week, as we'll get to understand how these energy companies are going to be affected, how long are they going to be shut down, if they're going to be shut down, and these oil platforms as well has been reported having some issues. Some of these oil platforms disengaging and floating out in the Gulf, and we're hearing about ships and ferries disengaging from their docks and floating out in the Mississippi River. So these are very, very important dynamics that is being affected by natural disasters and could have some rather interesting implications on the actual products themselves and the market itself. All right, very good. Amazon buys Affirm. All right. We seen a firm go public earlier this year around I think January, February. They were a public IPO, and we already knew what a firm was. We've seen a firm on many of these Amazon and online platforms where you're due to purchase products. It's a buy here, pay now service, and it's very interesting. In the quake that Square has just acquired a buy buy here, pay later platform as well. So you see Amazon not waiting too long to get involved in this space, making a deal with the firm. This actually brings some very firm ground in understanding that these massive online retailers and merchant platforms are definitely equipped and ready to take on um, uh, this sort of risk of consumers participating in buy here, pay later, or what would they describe, or holding on, what's the best way to describe, layaway, excuse me. All right, and that took a little while for the words to come. All right, but layaway. It's a typical like form of layaway where you purchase something and you kind of pay small interest and you pay weekly or monthly until you pay it off, and or they ship the product as you pay it off over time. So very interesting, right? Consumer spending has been definitely lifted as of lately. So we'll be getting a consumer confidence report, I do believe, coming up very, very, very soon. Let's see. Yep, we'll be looking to hear about a consumer confidence report probably in the next month, right? But consumer spending has been higher, and bringing a lot of interest into these buy here, pay now sort of business models, right? Peloton struggles, guys. Peloton struggles to make the sales. I've been talking about this often. It gapped down $10 earlier this week. I've seen Peloton still struggling to keep their sales, right? Slashing prices of their newest products and some of their old products. Peloton went through some struggles this year as they did recall massive amounts of their treadmills. We've seen a lot of struggles around Peloton. Can Peloton hold up and make it through the rest of this year without some big debunk and significant downside in the stock? Now, remember, this was a COVID play, right? And COVID is now kind of going away. I spoke about that. These companies that were taking advantage of this specific environment, and that these environments do change. And when these environments do change, likely the stock will be hit pretty hard. We're seeing a lot of that in Peloton. Peloton is struggling in many different departments, not only just sales, but actually product quality as well. So, remember, they have a subscription-based business model as well. Are they going to be able to keep these subscribers? Now we have other businesses with the same sort of business model coming into the space with cheaper products, cheaper workout equipment, cheaper monthly subscription. Um, it's going to be a battle for Peloton from here on out. It's definitely something to keep up with. It's going to be definitely be a steep battle. We spoke about just a bit ago Delta Airlines increasing healthcare coverage on unvaccinated workers. Now this is a tricky situation to be in, as far as being the employee. Increasing their healthcare may not also be too bad, right? But it's definitely cutting into their pay. And is this considered fair practice? Is this Does this violate any HIPAA laws? These are some of the questions that are at bay in understanding the ethics behind this decision of Delta Airlines. Right. Last but not least, Taiwan Semiconductors said that they're due to be raising their prices. Who is Taiwan Semiconductors' biggest customer? It's Apple. It's certainly Apple. And we can expect to see the prices of these phones and some of these Apple products increase going into the 2022 year, right? So these are the most important topics that have been happening in or around markets in the last about a week or so, okay? Um, some of the biggest details, and very, very important to keep track of some of these topics. We are going to hear potentially some weary information regarding Chinese publicly traded companies, especially the data companies like JD.com, Alibaba, and maybe even Tencent, right? We're going to hear a lot about these companies from the Chinese government as they could potentially be looking to delist these companies as they've been taking the favor away from publicly listed data companies doing business with the United States. The Chinese government is just not too happy with what's going on. They haven't been letting up either. So we will likely see more crackdown on some of these Chinese stocks. This could potentially lead to additional downside in stocks like Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, um, and JD.com. Right? Definitely something to keep up with, guys. I would certainly, most certainly, be keeping my eye out on these Chinese traded stocks to keep up with what's going on with the Chinese government and how they feel about some of their data companies trading publicly in the United States, right? So very good, guys. If anybody has any specific detailed information that they would like to discuss with me about markets, um, and or if you haven't gotten a chance to like this video or share it, right? Or join me on Patreon at Active MGMT at Patreon. I will definitely have the link in the description below and you can join me. Um, and that would sum it up for today's pre-market, this week's pre-market report. Keep your eye out on what's going on in the market ahead of you guys. Definitely want to stay up to date and fully aware. This is how you take advantage of the best opportunities. My name's Kyle here at Active Management Research, and it was great talking with you guys today. Hope everybody has a good week this week and has a good trading day on Monday. Take care.